husband held the children at the door and told her she owned nothing. His mother spat at her feet. The other woman smiled from the window while neighbors watched. Then a black SUV pulled up. The developer everyone feared stepped out, looked at the deed and said, "Ma'am, welcome home. We've been waiting for you. Now let me take you back. Let me show you how a good woman got pushed to the edge of her own front yard, and how the ones who pushed her never saw the storm coming." Her name was Ebony. She was 36 years old, soft eyes, tired hands, a heart that had given more than it ever got back. That afternoon the sky was gray. A light rain had started to fall on a quiet street in a quiet part of the city. The kind of street where neighbors knew each other's business. The kind of street where a woman's shame could become the whole block's entertainment in a single hour. Ebony stood on the wet grass of her own lawn. In front of her was the house she had cleaned for 12 years, the house she had painted with her own 2 hands, the house where she had carried 2 babies up the stairs at night when they had fevers, and standing in the doorway of that house was her husband. His name was Marcus. He was a tall man, a handsome man, the kind of man who could smile while he broke your heart, and right then he was smiling. "You don't live here no more," Marcus said. "You hear me? This is my family's house. You came here with nothing, you leaving with nothing." Behind him stood their 2 children, a little girl, 10 years old, named Nia, and a little boy, 6 years old, named Eli. Nia was crying. Eli didn't understand. He just held his sister's hand and looked at his mother like he was waiting for someone to tell him this was a game. It was not a game. Ebony took 1 step forward, just one. "Marcus," she said softly, "let me hug my babies, please. Just let me hold them." But before Marcus could answer, another voice cut through the rain. "Don't you let that woman touch them children." It was Mama Gloria, Marcus's mother. She came pushing through the doorway like a storm in a church dress. 62 years old, sharp tongue, mean heart. She had never liked Ebony, not for one single day. "You think you something?" Mama Gloria spat. "You was a maid. You was nothing but a maid when my son found you, cleaning other folks' floors, and now you want to act like you the queen of this house." And then Mama Gloria did something that made the whole street go quiet. She leaned forward and she spat on the ground at Ebony's feet. Right there, in front of everybody, the neighbors on their porches gasped. A few pulled out their phones. You know how people are. They'll watch you drown before they throw you a rope. Some of them were already recording. Ebony looked down at the wet spot on the ground near her shoe. Then she looked back up. And here is the thing that nobody expected. She did not cry out. She did not curse. She did not fall apart. She just stood there, calm, still, like a tree in a storm that has decided it will not break. And up above, in the window of the second floor, a curtain moved. A woman appeared, smiling. Her name was Renee. She was Marcus's business partner. That's what he called her, his partner. But everybody on that street knew what she really was. She had moved into that house 3 months ago, and right now, in that window, Renee was wearing Ebony's robe, the soft blue one, the one Ebony's mother had given her before she passed. Renee smiled down at the woman on the lawn, and she gave a little wave, slow, cruel, like she was waving goodbye to a stranger. That was the moment. Husband in the door, mother spitting on the ground, the other woman smiling from the window, 3 blades in one back, the whole street watching. This was the moment that was supposed to destroy Ebony. But the narrator wants you to understand something, because the people on that lawn understood nothing. When Mama Gloria spat, Ebony didn't flinch. When Renee waved, Ebony didn't shake. When Marcus said, "You own nothing," Ebony pressed her hand against an old gray jacket folded over her arm. An old man's work jacket, faded, soft from years of wear. She held it close to her chest, the way a woman holds the last thing that still loves her back. And the narrator is telling you now. The truth that would burn that whole family to the ground was not in that house. It was sewn inside that jacket, closer to her heart than any of them could ever reach. So Ebony picked up one bag from the wet grass. She looked one more time at Nia and little Eli, and she whispered 4 words that only the rain could hear. "Mama's coming back, babies." Then she turned, and she walked away down that long gray street, while strangers filmed her shame. But to understand why she was so calm, you have to understand where she came from. So let me take you back. Way back, to a small town and a quiet man who saw the future before anybody else did. Ebony was not born rich, far from it. She was raised in a small southern town where the roads turned to red dirt and the houses leaned a little to one side. Her mother passed when Ebony was young, so it was just her and her father. His name was Otis. Otis was a quiet man, a working man. He fixed roofs and dug wells and measured land for other people. He never went to college. He taught himself everything he knew from old books and hard days. But Otis had a gift. He could look at a piece of empty land that everybody else called worthless, and he could see what it would become. "Baby girl," he used to say to little Ebony, "land remembers. Land remembers who loved it first. You take care of a piece of land, and one day that land gonna take care of you." Now here is something most folks didn't know about Otis. While other men spent their money on cars and fine clothes, Otis bought land. Cheap land, ugly land, swampy lots and empty fields way out on the edge of the growing city, plots that nobody wanted. He bought them for almost nothing, a little at a time, year after year. People in town laughed at him. They called him the dirt collector. They said Otis was wasting his life buying mud. But Otis just smiled and kept buying. And little Ebony grew up watching her father work. She grew up soft, kind, the kind of child who gave her own lunch to a hungry boy at school and went hungry herself. The kind of child who cried when she saw a dog in the rain. Her father loved that softness in her, but he worried about it too. "The world is hard on soft hearts, baby," he told her once, "so I'm gonna leave you something hard to stand on, so you never have to beg nobody for nothing." Ebony didn't understand what he meant. Not then. Years passed. Ebony grew up. She moved to the city to find work, and she found it the hard way, cleaning houses, scrubbing floors, wiping down kitchens for families who looked right through her like she was glass. And that's where she met Marcus. Back then, Marcus had nothing either. He was a young man with big dreams and empty pockets. He talked about building things, owning things, becoming somebody, and Ebony believed in him. Lord, did she believe in him? She married him for love, not money. There was no money to marry him for, and here is the part that breaks your heart. Ebony never told Marcus what she carried, because the same year she met Marcus, her father Otis got sick. Ebony went home to that little leaning house to take care of him in his final days, and on his last night on this earth, Otis called her to his bedside. His hands were shaking, his voice was weak, but his eyes were clear. He reached under his pillow, and he pulled out an old gray work jacket, the one he wore every day of his working life. "Take this," he whispered. "Keep it close. Don't you ever lose it." Ebony took the jacket. She thought he just wanted her to have something to remember him by. She held it and she cried, but Otis grabbed her wrist with the last of his strength, and he made her feel it. He made her press her fingers against the lining of that jacket, and inside the lining, sewn in tight, was something stiff, something folded, paper. "What is it, Daddy?" she asked. "It's everything," Otis said. "It's all the land. Every plot I ever bought. It's all in your name now, title and deed. The whole thing, baby girl." Ebony shook her head. "Daddy, that old swampland, that worthless dirt." Otis smiled, a tired, knowing smile. That city is growing, baby. It's growing fast. And one day it's going to grow right up to my land. And when it does, every man with money is going to come knocking. They going to want what you got." He squeezed her hand. "But listen to me. Don't you show this paper to nobody, not friends, not even a husband. Don't you show it until they show you who they really are. You understand me? Let people show you their true face first. Then you'll know." Those were some of the last words Otis ever spoke, and Ebony kept her promise. She married Marcus, and she never told him. She let him love her, or so she thought, for nothing. She wanted to be loved for her heart, not for a folded paper in an old man's coat. She kept that jacket in the back of the closet for 12 long years, and all that time she had no idea how right her father had been. She had no idea that the city was crawling closer to that land every single year. She had no idea that the worthless dirt was becoming the most wanted ground in the whole region. She just kept cleaning, cooking, raising babies, loving a man who was slowly turning into a stranger. The same hands that once held her father's were now scrubbing a husband's floors for free, and the people in that house thought she had nothing. That was their first mistake. Now let me bring you back to the present, to the weeks after Ebony got locked out on that gray afternoon. Ebony had nowhere to go, but she had one friend left in this world, an older woman named Pearl who ran a little laundromat across town. Pearl took her in, gave her a small back room with a fold-out couch, fed her warm food, and let her cry when she needed to. "You can stay as long as you need, baby," Pearl told her. "Family ain't always blood. Sometimes family is who catches you when blood lets you fall." But even safe at Pearl's place, Ebony was breaking inside, because every day she had to watch her old life from the outside, like a woman watching her own house burn through a window. Marcus didn't waste any time. Word spread fast. Marcus and his partner Renee were starting a big project, a development, luxury townhomes, right there on Ebony Street and the empty land all around it. They called it a family vision. Mama Gloria bragged about it at church every Sunday. She told the whole congregation that her son was about to be a rich man, a real estate man, a man of importance, and Renee stood beside Marcus in fine clothes, playing the role of the businesswoman who made it all happen. They put up signs, they held meetings, they shook hands with men in suits. But here is the thing. Ebony heard about it all. The city is big, but the streets talk. And one evening, folding clothes in the back of Pearl's laundromat, Ebony heard two men talking out front. Investors. Men who had put their money behind Marcus's dream, and what Ebony overheard turned her cold. These men were talking about the payout. They were saying that if this development went through, Marcus stood to walk away with more money than a working man could earn in a whole lifetime of paychecks, enough to never lift a finger again. Generational money, the kind of money that changes a family's name forever. Ebony's hands stopped folding, because she knew something those men didn't know. She knew something Marcus had forgotten in his greed. You cannot build a single house on land you do not own, and Marcus did not own that land. None of it, not the lot the house sat on, not the empty fields all around it. Otis had bought all of it decades ago for almost nothing, and it all sat, every square inch, in the name of one quiet woman folding laundry in the back of a laundromat. But Ebony was too broken to feel powerful. Not yet, because while Marcus chased his fortune, he was also chasing something crueler. He wanted the children all to himself. Renee had whispered poison in his ear. She told Marcus that Ebony had only ever wanted his money, that she was after the development, that she would come for everything. It was a lie so backwards it should have been funny. But Marcus believed it, because a guilty man will believe anything that makes him feel less guilty. So Marcus filed papers to keep the kids. He told the court Ebony was unstable, homeless, unfit. He used her own kindness against her, twisted it into weakness, and that, more than anything, is what almost killed Ebony. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. She would sit on that fold-out couch in the dark, holding her father's gray jacket, staring at the wall for hours. She felt numb, empty, like a woman who had already died, but her body forgot to lie down. "What's the point?" she whispered to Pearl one night. "They got my babies. They got my house. They turned the whole world against me. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am nothing." Pearl grabbed her face in both hands. "Don't you ever say that again," Pearl said. "You hear me? You don't know what you carrying, child. Pain ain't the end of the story. Sometimes pain is just the part right before the turn." But Ebony couldn't hear it. She was too far gone. And then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday night. Ebony's old phone buzzed. It was a number she didn't know. She almost didn't answer, but she did. And a tiny voice came through, a little girl's voice, whispering, scared. "Mama, Mama, is that you?" It was Naya. Ebony's heart stopped. Baby, it's me. It's Mama. Are you okay?" Nia was whispering because she wasn't supposed to be on the phone. She had snuck into a bathroom. She had memorized her mama's number a long time ago. Smart girl. "Mama?" Nia whispered, and her little voice was shaking. "Daddy said you're nobody. Miss Renee said you ran away because you didn't love us." "Mama?" The little girl's voice cracked. "That's not true, right? You still love us, right?" And something happened inside Ebony in that moment. Something woke up. The numbness cracked like ice on a spring river, and underneath the ice was not sadness. Underneath was fire. "Nia," Ebony said, and her voice was steady now, steady like her father's used to be. "You listen to me, baby. Your mama loves you more than the sky is wide. And I did not run away. I will never run from you. They locked Mama out, but Mama is coming back, you hear me? Mama is coming back, and ain't nobody on this earth gonna keep me from my babies." The call ended fast. Nia had to go. But Ebony sat in the dark, holding the phone, breathing hard. Then she stood up. She walked to the back of the room, and she picked up her father's gray jacket. For 12 years, she had kept that paper hidden. For 12 years, she had waited for people to show her who they really were. Well, they had shown her. Every last one of them. Marcus had shown her. Mama Gloria had shown her. Renee had shown her. Ebony sat down at Pearl's little kitchen table. She took out a small sewing needle, and with steady hands, for the first time in 12 years, she began to cut open the lining of her father's jacket. "Okay, Daddy," she whispered as her fingers found the folded paper inside. "It's time. Now I need you to picture the next part, because this is where the whole world turns over." 3 weeks went by, and in those 3 weeks, Marcus's dream reached its biggest day, the day of the groundbreaking ceremony. This was the moment Marcus had been waiting for his whole life, the official start of the development, the day the cameras would come, the day he would stand on a stage and finally become the important man he always wanted to be. They set it up on the big empty field at the end of Ebony's old street. They put up a white tent, rows of folding chairs, a small wooden stage with a microphone, a long red ribbon stretched across 2 posts, waiting to be cut. The whole neighborhood came out. News cameras from the local station, men in suits, the investors, people from the city office. And right in the front, of course, sat Mama Gloria in her finest church hat, fanning herself, proud as a peacock. On the stage stood Marcus, sharp suit, big smile, and beside him, Renee in a red dress, holding a giant pair of golden scissors for the ribbon, and standing near the stage, holding Nia and little Eli by the hands, was a sight that would break any mother's heart. Marcus had brought the children to show them off, to let them watch their father become a king. Marcus stepped to the microphone. He cleared his throat. He looked out at the crowd and the cameras. "Family, friends, neighbors," he began. "Today is the day we build the future. My family came from nothing, and today my family builds an empire, this land." But Marcus never finished that sentence, because that is the exact moment everyone heard it. The sound of tires on gravel, a big engine, slow and heavy, a black SUV, long, shining, expensive. It rolled right up to the edge of the ceremony and stopped. The crowd turned. The cameras turned. Marcus squinted from the stage, and then the people started whispering, because they recognized that truck. Everybody in the city knew that truck. It belonged to the most powerful developer in the whole region, a man whose name was on half the towers downtown, a man who decided which neighborhoods rose and which ones fell, a man other rich men were afraid of. His name was Mr. Coleman. The back door of the SUV opened, and Mr. Coleman stepped out. He was an older black man, silver hair, quiet eyes, a calm, expensive coat. He moved slow, the way powerful men move when they know nobody can rush them. Marcus's face lit up like Christmas morning, because Marcus thought in that foolish moment that the great Mr. Coleman had come to bless his project, to shake his hand, to make him look important in front of all these cameras. Marcus rushed down off the stage. He stuck out his hand. "Mr. Coleman, sir, it's an honor. Welcome to the future of—" But Mr. Coleman did not shake his hand. He didn't even look at Marcus. Mr. Coleman walked right past him, right past his outstretched hand, like Marcus wasn't even standing there. The crowd went quiet. Mama Gloria stopped fanning herself. Renee's smile started to slip, because Mr. Coleman was walking toward someone else. He was walking toward the back of the crowd, toward a woman who had just stepped quietly out of an old car, a woman in a simple dress, calm, composed, wearing an old gray work jacket, pressed clean now, worn over her shoulders like armor. Ebony. She walked forward slow. The crowd parted for her without even knowing why. Nia saw her mother and gasped. Little Eli started pulling to get free, and Mr. Coleman, the most feared man in the city, stopped right in front of Ebony. And he did something nobody could believe. He took off his hat. He gave a small, respectful nod, almost a bow. "Ma'am," Mr. Coleman said, and his deep voice carried across the silent field. "Welcome home. We've been waiting for you. For a long time." You could have heard a leaf fall. Marcus stood frozen, his hand still out in the air. "Wait," he stammered. "Wait, what is this?" "Mr. Coleman, sir, this is my development. This is my—" "No," Mr. Coleman said, calm, final. He didn't even raise his voice. "Son, this was never your land, not 1 inch of it." He turned and faced the crowd, faced the cameras, faced the frozen investors in their suits. "My people have been trying to develop this whole area for 3 years, Mr. Coleman said, and every single time we hit a wall, because we could not buy this land, we could not lease this land, because every plot, every lot, every field for half a mile in every direction already belongs to one person, and it has belonged to that one person, free and clear, for over 12 years. He looked back at Ebony, and he smiled. It belongs to her. The whole field exploded into murmurs. Mama Gloria's hat nearly fell off her head. Renee took a step back from Marcus. "And Marcus," Marcus laughed, a nervous, ugly laugh. "That's a lie. She's a maid. She came here with nothing. She owns nothing." And that's when Ebony finally spoke. She reached into the gray jacket, slow, steady, and she pulled out the folded paper, the deed, 12 years sewn into her father's coat, now opened to the light of day. She held it up, and she looked her husband dead in his eyes. "You said I owned nothing, Marcus," Ebony said. Her voice was soft, but it cut like a blade. You said that to me on the lawn in front of all these same people. You let your mother spit at my feet. You let that woman wear my mother's robe and wave at me from my own window. She took one step closer. But Marcus, every brick you wanted to lay, every dollar these men gave you, every dream you built. She paused. You built it all on my father's land. Land you never owned. Land you could never own, because it was mine the whole time. Mr. Coleman stepped forward then, and he made it worse for Marcus, so much worse. Young man, Coleman said, do you understand what these development rights are worth today? This land your father-in-law bought for the price of a used car, back when folks called it worthless swamp. That land is now the single most valuable piece of property in this entire region. We are talking about a fortune that could carry a family for 3 generations. He shook his head slowly, and every dollar your investors handed you, you borrowed against ground that was never yours to borrow on. Son, you didn't build an empire. You built a crime on her dirt. The investors in the front row stood up all at once. And this is the part nobody expected. This is the part that was different from every story like it. The crowd did not just gasp and go silent. The investors turned on Marcus, right there, out loud, in front of everybody. One man shouted, "Where's our money, Marcus?" Another yelled, "You told us you owned this land. You signed papers." The men in suits started pushing toward the stage, and the news cameras swung away from Ebony and pointed straight at a sweating, stammering Marcus. His big day, his empire, falling apart on live television. Renee was the first to run. She dropped those golden scissors right on the stage. They hit the wood with a loud clang, and she stepped away from Marcus like he was on fire. She grabbed her purse and started walking fast toward the parking lot, not even looking back. The businesswoman who built it all, gone the second, there was nothing left to take. Mama Gloria sat frozen in her church hat. The same mouth that had spat at Ebony's feet could not find a single word, and Marcus stood alone on his stage. The cameras on him, the investors yelling, his woman running, his mother silent. Everything he stole from Ebony, he was now losing in front of the whole world. In the days that followed, the truth came all the way down on the people who had thrown Ebony out like trash. The development collapsed overnight. There was nothing to build because there was no land to build on. The investors pulled every dollar they had put in. And worse, they came after Marcus for the money he had already spent. The fancy suits, the big SUV he had leased, the lifestyle he had been faking. All of it had been borrowed against a lie. The bank moved in fast. Marcus had taken loans using the land as the promise, but the land was never his. So now the loans were just debt, cold, crushing debt. They took the leased car, they took the fine furniture, and then they came for the house itself. The very house Marcus had locked Ebony out of, while telling her it was his family's forever. It was not his family's, it was on Ebony's land too. Renee was already gone, long gone. She had moved on to some other man with some other dream before the cameras even finished rolling. She had never loved Marcus. She had loved the smell of money, and the moment that smell turned to smoke, she vanished. Marcus called her phone 100 times. She never picked up once. And Mama Gloria, the proud woman who bragged to the whole church that her son was about to be rich, she had to go right back to that same church. But this time not to brag, this time to ask for help, to ask the same people she had looked down on if they could spare a meal, a few dollars, a place to stay. The church helped her, the way good people do, but every bowl of soup tasted like the shame she had served to another woman first. The narrator wants you to understand. Ebony did not do any of this to them. She did not have to. They dug their own graves. She just stopped covering them with dirt. And then came the part that mattered most to Ebony, the only part she truly fought for. her children, with Mr. Coleman's lawyers standing beside her and the truth of her ownership clear as day. The custody case turned over in a single afternoon. Ebony was not homeless. Ebony was not unstable. Ebony was, in fact, one of the wealthiest landowners in the entire city and had been the whole time. The same court that almost gave Marcus the children now looked at him with hard eyes and asked why he had lied. Naya and little Eli came home to their mother. The narrator wishes you could have seen that moment. Ebony standing on the steps of the courthouse, and her two babies running to her across the stone, Nia crying, little Eli laughing, Ebony falling to her knees and wrapping both of them up in her arms so tight, like she was making up for every single night they spent apart. "I told you," she whispered into their hair over and over. "I told you Mama was coming back. I told you." And here is the most beautiful part, the part that shows you who Ebony really was, all the way down to her soul. She did not keep all that wealth for herself. She could have. Lord knows she had earned it. She could have built her own towers and become the very thing that broke her. But she remembered her father. She remembered Otis and his quiet wisdom. Land remembers who loved it first. So Ebony made a deal with Mr. Coleman. The land would be developed, yes, but not into luxury townhomes that pushed poor folks out. It would be developed into homes that regular families could actually afford. Good homes, strong homes, and she signed the heart of the land, the original piece, into a community trust, a trust in her father's name, the Otis Family Trust, so that the dirt collector who everyone laughed at would have his name on the ground forever, so that the man who saw the future would finally be seen. And she walked away from that courthouse with no speech, no gloating, no cameras chasing her by choice. She just took her two children by the hands, the same way little Eli had once held his sister on that terrible lawn, and she walked into her new life with her head high and her heart quiet. Silent dignity, the kind that can't be bought and can't be stolen and can't ever be locked out. Let me show you one last picture before we go. Let me show you how the story ends. It was months later now, a warm evening, golden light. Ebony sat on the porch of a home that was finally, fully, truly hers. Not because a man let her stay, but because the ground it stood on had carried her family's name for longer than anyone knew. By the front door, hanging on a simple hook, was an old gray work jacket. Otis's jacket. The lining was open and empty now. The secret it carried for 12 years had finally been set free. And somehow, empty like that, it looked at peace, like an old soldier who could finally put down his weight and rest. Out in the yard, Nia and little Eli were running and laughing in the golden light, chasing each other, falling in the grass, getting back up. The sound of their laughter floated up onto the porch like music, and the neighbors, the same neighbors who had stood on their porches and filmed Ebony's shame in the rain. They walked by now and they waved, and they did not whisper. They said, "Evening, Miss Ebony," with respect in their voices, because the world has a funny way of bowing to the very person it once spat on. Ebony waved back, kind as ever. She held no grudge against any of them. A soft heart, her father had warned her, in a hard world, but she had learned the secret he was really trying to teach her. A soft heart is not a weak heart. A soft heart is just a strong heart that refuses to turn cruel. A neighbor's child asked her once, in the innocent way children do, "Miss Ebony, is it true you're real rich now, like the richest lady in the whole city?" Ebony just smiled and looked out at her two babies playing in the grass. "Baby," she said softly, "I'll tell you the truth. All that land, all that fortune, all those papers, that ain't the richest thing I own, not even close." She nodded toward Nia and Eli. "The richest thing I own is right there, running in that yard. 2 healthy children who came home to me, and a good man's name that nobody can ever laugh at again. That's the only fortune that ever mattered. And the narrator wants to leave you with this, because there's a reason I told you this story. They tried to lock her out of a house, but you can never lock a person out of what they truly own: their worth, their patience, their God-given dignity. You can take a woman's keys, you can take her furniture, you can even take her children for a season, but you cannot take the thing that was sown into her, deep down, by the people who truly loved her. The quiet ones are not weak. Remember that. The ones who don't scream, the ones who don't fight back right away, the ones who just go quiet and still in the middle of the storm. They are not broken, they are just waiting, and when their moment comes, it changes everything. Ebony waited 12 years, and in one single afternoon, the whole world learned her name. If Ebony's story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Somebody watching right now is being locked out, looked down on, told they're nothing, and they need to hear that silence is not surrender. Type dignity in the comments. Share this with one person who needs strength today, and subscribe, because every week we give a voice to the quiet ones who refuse to break. Your time is coming. Stay till the end of the next one. It's even deeper.